Hello, and God bless you. Welcome to Wow Mom. Hello again. This is Eleanor Manfredi from Wow Mom, and today we're going to do some Mother's Day things. We're going to talk about mothers. Moms are the ones who brought us into this world. They're the ones that formed us, and they're the ones that stand by our side. So my mom's on today, and it's a favorite for y'all. This is Eleanor Manfredi. Hey, Mom, how you doing?
Fine, doing great.
There she is. Look, isn't she beautiful? I say her age every time. I'm not going to tell y'all. You have to guess because she doesn't like people to know her age. she's she's not the same age as me, but she does look very young for her age. And so I'm old too. So we're glad to have you today. And we thought today would be fun to talk about your growing up years with your mom, and then something about you being a mom, and just moms all about Mother's Day. That's coming up soon. So first of all, my mom had an unusual situation in that her mom and dad were from Italy. So could you tell that story, even though we told before, just to start off on what happened, how grandma and grandpa married?
Okay. My father stowed away on a boat to come to America, and he was 17 years old, and he lied about his age and joined the army to go fight the Italians. So he went back to Italy to fight them. And so then he came back and he remembered my mother, who he remembered her at 7 years old and hadn't seen her since. But he sent for her to come to America. And my grandmother wouldn't let her come. And so she had to wait till she was 21. And then my father sent her money. And then she came over. And my father had a job digging graves at a graveyard. And my mother was a very, very scary person. And she refused to live in the house that they provided for him. So she lived with her friends from Italy that had moved to America. So she lived with them until my father found a house. And my father, for some reason, never wanted to own a house. He only wanted to rent. He was given 2 houses that were beautiful, and all he had to do was take them and pay the rent on them, but he refused to take the houses. He had something he just was funny about owning a house. So anyway, that's how they met. And my mother didn't remember my father at all.
Oh, no. And then she met for the
But
first
she
time.
just wanted to come to America.
Did she meet him on the first time when she got off the boat or on the boat? Or
Well, I guess, I don't know, but I guess it was on the boat. And then my father arranged for them to get married by the captain of the boat.
okay,
But my mother didn't accept that.
of course.
And then my father found somebody a judge or somebody to marry them. My mother still wouldn't accept that. She had to get married by a priest.
Oh.
So they had 6 children.
Mhm.
And they were good parents because they didn't have a lot of rules and there wasn't any spanking in the house. But my mother cooked 2 hot meals a day.
Wow.
When we came home from school, we always had a hot meal. And at night we had a hot meal.
That's so
So
nice.
she worked very hard because in those days they didn't have vacuum cleaners. And they had a washing machine that they kept on a back porch, a closed-in back porch. And when she had to wash clothes, she and my father had to push this washing machine in the kitchen and set it up by the sink. And that's how they washed clothes.
Wow, they were hard worker. I found it interesting that my mom said that Grandma Amata, my grandma, did not speak English. That's her mother, but Grandpa did, right? Antonio, he spoke English. Your daddy, right?
Yeah, my father spoke very good English.
So how was it being raised in a world that was so, like, they were so different? They had so different of an environment that they were used to, and then you and your siblings had to rise above and do a lot of things to help Grandma understand, like, be the interpreter in a way, right?
Mm-hmm. And my mother only spoke English, but I had a brother. My mother only spoke Italian, and I had a brother that could not speak one word of Italian.
Wow.
And And he, even though he grew up with it, it was funny because he could not speak Italian. He could understand it, you know.
And did you
But
all learn Italian except for Uncle Ray? Or was it Uncle Ray?
Uncle Sammy spoke Italian,
Wow,
and
there's the first
my
one.
brother Ray spoke Italian.
Who did not speak Italian?
Joe.
Oh, Joe, okay.
And
So
Marion didn't speak
how
Italian.
what your siblings do, I find that interesting. And then grandma was in Italy, her mom was a judge. Grandma Amata's mom was a judge, right, in Italy.
Uh-huh.
I don't know her dad was, but you know that. And tell what your siblings did. This is what she raised. It was an ethnic family that was from immigrants, and this is what they became. Mom was a caterer. But go on, your first Uncle Sammy was a judge or a
Uncle
lawyer?
Sammy graduated from 2 or 3 universities,
Yep.
and he had a very good voice, and he had a program on Sundays for an hour where he sang and told jokes. He had a big sense of humor.
Oh.
And my brother Joe was a quiet one, but he became a lawyer. And I married my husband, who was a nuclear chemist.
You were a
My
caterer.
sister,
You were a caterer, though. You did your own business. You were a legend.
later on, I was a caterer.
Yeah.
And my sister, who was going to marry Reggie, and I said to her, how do you expect him to support you, Marion? Because he didn't go to college.
Sure.
Well, Uncle Reggie turned out to have the most money in the family. He sold Winnebagos.
Uh-huh.
And he
And
was
then,
a very, very good salesman.
Yes, I love
Big
it.
smile on his face.
I like Uncle Reggie. So then there was Uncle Nicky, and he was electronics. I think he fixed TVs and did electronics. Pat's dad as well did electrical engineer. I don't know. And then Uncle Ray was a hairdresser, which was in our family. That was the best because everyone loved Uncle Ray and how he made us look beautiful. Because to Grandma Mata, beauty was the main thing, right? To Grandma Mata, she was very beautiful, and she would always say, beautifully, beautiful. I don't have to say it in Italian. Beautifully, Grandma. Beautifully, how'd she say? Bella, I don't know.
Bella something.
Yeah, because we have a granddaughter, Bella, and you think she's gorgeous too. All beauty's important if that's not your main focus, but it is important to Grandma. She would make sure that everybody, left the house looking beautiful out of the grandkids. We went to visit her, but so we have Grandma wasn't really scary. She meant that she had a lot of fears. That she was scary.
Yeah, she had a lot of fears.
A lot of fears. So do I. I go, okay, fear is the enemy. Faith over fear, y'all. So then Mom was raised where she had food was a main central thing, and Grandma did cook a lot, and she hosted a lot of Christmas parties. The cousins would come, and I don't know if everybody brought food or Grandma cooked it all, but Grandma really liked food, Italian food mainly, right? Italian food mainly.
No, they made roast beef and roast chicken.
Okay.
My father used to help her cook.
Did he? Okay.
And we didn't only eat Italian, although we had the specialties like brashol.
Okay.
and things, and chicken cutlets were everybody's favorite.
Okay.
But my brother Ray was a hairdresser. But between you and me, and don't tell anybody, but he was not a very good hairdresser at all, except the women lined up to have him do their hair, and he wasn't that good.
I know there was a time he
did my hair. He hired 2 women that were excellent beauticians.
And his hair studio was more like a place to go in East Rochester where you went to have a great day. There first be the hairdo, and then Uncle Joe at the time, Uncle Joe and helped me bring down the capicoli and the sandwiches. And I'm not a food person, so we know, but they all ate and they drank and they were merry and they had fun. And I just love this story about one. This is who Grandma raised and whose mom's sibling. Uncle Ray one time hosted an entire spaghetti dinner. I think it was at his little house because it wasn't really that big in those days. It was bigger than I thought. And he had people pay in so they could help this lady who had cancer. Do you remember that? I don't know who the lady was. He did kind deeds. Grandma's big thing was gardening, which I don't garden either. The way I'm like Grandma's, I like religion, but she did a lot of gardening, right? Flowers and out in the field with her little hat. And what other things happened when you grew up with the 2 families and the whole Italian, your mom not speaking, you had to do a lot of things for her, right? Go grocery shopping and explain things. And no, I don't know.
We lived in a neighborhood that was mostly Italian. So she would go to the store and they were all Italian, so there wasn't any problem.
Okay, she was amazing, but she really spent most of her days cooking and then Mom did a lot of the cleaning with Aunt Marion to help out Grandma, and then she did a lot of rosaries. Like Grandma did a lot of rosaries. That was her thing. You find Grandma's always in the rocking chair saying the rosary. I just remember that. And she would always fix those oranges and then some kind of cookie with orange flavored cookies. What were those cookies called, Mom? She used to make those little cookies in the shape of an S.
They were Italian wedding cookies.
See, so she did that.
And they were plain with a little bit of frosting on them.
Yeah.
But
Now tell us a little about your dad.
she'd bake cookies for most of the weddings in town.
How about your dad? Your dad
just donated.
Sorry. Your dad played solitaire a lot. That's what I remember. He's on the floor and do a solitaire game. And then what else did he do? I know he did a lot of things. Just the good stuff. Just good stuff. What did he do? He did a lot of. Everyone knew everybody in town. It was called East Rochester, New York, and everyone knew everybody, right? Pretty much. And he went to school there, at the public school, and the cousins. When I was a little girl, I hardly lived in New York at all. But from 4th grade to 8th grade, I was at the school, St. Jerome's Catholic School, and all the cousins that were really Catholic were there, and some cousins were in public school. So it's like a town full of 25 of my first cousins. And nowadays we can get to know them because we left when I was in started high school. So now I'm going to ask some questions. Tell us some of the stories. I really like the story about when you had pneumonia and lay in Walgreens. Tell me about that. This is one.
I used to stop at this 5 and 10 and talk to this one lady. And for some reason, I was like in kindergarten or 1st grade, but for some reason she didn't mind talking to me. And then I got pneumonia, and I used to come home and tell my mother about this lady. And my mother went to the 5 and 10 and told the lady that I had pneumonia, and the lady came over to visit with me. And that was one of the highlights of growing up. This lady took the time to come and visit me when I had. And then while I was in bed, my mother lit candles so that I would live. I don't know if she was sorry that she did that because. So anyway, so she went next door to have coffee while I was taking a nap. And it was a windy day, and the curtains caught fire on the candle. And there was a fire in the window, and my mother, by luck, just came in time to put out the fire because I was in a crib. But I remember that so vividly.
So that was scary, but that's why, Grandma was quick thinking. That's a scary thing too. But then you say, it's like a miracle she saved. There was another. I'm looking at my notes when I do this. Let's see. The holy candle too. By the way, that was a holy candle that she had. She had the time with Uncle Nicky, and I've shared before too. But these are just Grandma. Then we're going to talk about my mom. She had the time when she saw a cross in the window. I told all my kids, and she just knew her son was in trouble. It was an adult child, and she prayed and she went out of the house. She wasn't that much to go walk into Uncle Nicky's where he lived in another end of town, and she knew that something was wrong. He had died. So she really had like a in the charismatic or the Catholic gifts of the Holy Spirit. She had a gift of word of knowledge. She knew when something was up, and she said, "Tell us about the time when something happened. You had a car accident." Remember, Grandma had the word of knowledge.
Oh yeah, we had a car accident. We were living in Florida, and we got home from the hospital. And there were me and the 2 girls. And so we just got back from the hospital, and my mother called, and my mother did not know how to make a long distance phone call. So she had the lady next door come over and make a phone call. I don't know how she knew the phone number. But anyway, my mother called and she says, "Leonora, are you all right?" And I said, "No, Ma, we just had a car accident."
Wow.
She knew something was wrong because she never called because she didn't know how to make a long distance phone call.
Sure.
And you had to pay for phone calls in those days.
You did.
So I didn't make one either. I used to write letters. And but anyway, she was a real mother. I mean, her whole life was being a mother.
She's a good grandma too. But then she had a lot of challenges. Like I say, everyone has their good things that happen in your life, and everyone has some challenges. Grandma's like a saintly person, and it's just an interesting story. I thought you'd like to hear it again today because it's two people that didn't really know each other. They married, they stayed married how many years? 50 years.
No, they were married forever until my
Forever.
father died.
Yeah,
I don't
forever.
remember how many years it was, but
A long time, long time. I think it was a lot of years. And anyways, Grandpa was the man, just like my daddy. He was the man that just kept having 9 lives. He would be in the Batavia hospital, and when Grandpa never would come running, Grandpa is dying, okay, and then he lives. It's like it was pretty much. We were laughing. Grandpa was just one of a kind. He was a little man. That's why we got the little gene. Grandma's kind of little too, and he was just a guy that was. He traveled a beat of a different drum. He's like a different kind of guy. They were probably the most opposite couple you want to meet. Grandma was very religious. Grandpa was very not religious, and they made it. They were like, oh, someone's calling in. Well, we'll just tell them not today. And that Pat told me to turn that off. But you know what? Sometimes on my show, wow, Mom, we have bloopers. I never care. We go, that was a blooper, and we don't care. It's off now, I hope. And then if it's on, we turn it off. And thank you so much for calling at this very moment. Okay. And then I would like to say my mom also took some things. I think this is very important about Mother's Day. Those of you who are listening that are moms, is that when you become a mother, or first a wife and then a mother, you have take some things that you liked about your family to add to your tradition, and then other things you don't do because that was what your mom did, but that's not how you did it. So what were some of the things you did in your, like you did motherhood different than your mom, but you were a businesswoman, which I thought was great in your older age. But what did you do differently than your mom? What did you keep as a tradition? What things did you keep that your mom did? Like,
my mother used to cook a big meal on Mother's Day.
did you? Okay.
And I didn't cook a big meal on Mother's Day. I don't remember. I don't remember what I did on Mother's Day.
I always hosted Mother's Day. I myself did. And then when my kids got to be mothers, they're like, okay, it's my Mother's Day. So I skip Mother's Day. Pat and I used to go out of town because I go, it's their mother. If the mom's Mother's Day, there's the kids. I so agree. So you don't want to cook on Mother's Day. Y'all listen. If they're asking you to cook on Mother's Day, just say no. They go out to dinner, host a party at someone else's house. Go on, Mom. So you didn't on Mother's Day. I don't remember. It's so long ago when
I think I came to your house on Mother's Day.
When you got older, but I say when I was gone for many years. I moved out when I was 17, lived in 4 states.
I think Mother's Day was, we just didn't do much. We didn't really celebrate Mother's Day.
Okay, so you
kids brought little gifts, you know.
Good. We're a big gift family. I am not as much as I was because my husband's family was not a gift family. So they gave gifts on Mother's Day. And then when we were little, Mom, I don't know if you remember, we baked those cakes, and Linda had the idea because she was so much more smart than me. But we cut out little pieces of the cakes and wrap money in quarters and dime and little wax paper and put it in the cake and then frost it. And we couldn't, I wasn't a baker, so the cake come on like this to the side, and then they'd eat the cake and it was like money. It was like a money cake. I don't know if you remember. I remember, I go, why did we do that? So one of the traditions, you were really big on festive holidays and food. You were big on that. And that was very good.
I love to cook.
She loves to cook.
And I didn't mind cleaning up after I cooked. A lot of people love to cook, but they don't like cleaning up. I didn't mind any of that.
I think that's what we're gonna go to. What next is Mom. She ended up being a caterer. Those were her gifts. Like in the early days when we lived here, we had Thanksgiving at Mom's house. It was a big, big occasion. And I would, at the end, after we got older and had many kids and life, we would hire a maid to come in and clean because it was so much on Mom. Even she did it to her into her 80s. She did. Then Julie picked up Thanksgiving for a while, and we kind of now everyone's getting so big. The family, our family, mine is 7 children, 4 son-in-laws, 2 daughter-in-laws, and 14 grandkids. So everybody grew, and so it's a lot. So Mom, so then what were some of the other traditions? You didn't have TV when you grew up, I bet. Did you have TV when you were a little girl?
Yeah, we had TV. Growing up, we didn't have TV. But then when we got married, we had, you know, my parents got a TV while we were growing up, but as we got older. When
was it black and white with little antlers? I mean, I don't know. Was it black and white TV? Was it black and white at first?
Yeah, it was black and white, and you had an antenna.
See, thank the Lord.
And you all sat around, and before we had TV, we'd have a radio. And we'd have a radio on, and we'd all sit in a circle around the radio, listening to the radio.
That's funny because nowadays podcasts are big, y'all. And that's the thing, that's like the radio, but you can podcasts are what people listen to now, Mom. Instead of, I do video podcasts, and a lot of people do audio where people can just listen. It's come back full swing. I thought it was funny about the phone, Mom, because we did have to pay money for a phone call. You know, when I was in Utah, when I first got married and Pat went to practice in Utah, I to call Mom and Dad, I was charged. It wasn't, you put money in a phone. And it's fun to think back to some of these traditions. The washers used to be the ones you turn, right? Not for you, but Grandma. And then I love the idea of the was it the dishwasher or the washer in the living room? I mean, in the kitchen, whatever you said, you had it plugged in. Was it in the kitchen? The dishwasher?
Yeah, it was in the kitchen.
Because Mom one time had a house, I'll never forget the house, that they decided, they were before their time. They decided to redo an old house, like a really old house on Spruce Street, not Spruce Creek. And so Mom had this vision, and we had even like, they were way before their time on decorating. They had like a waterfall dribbling down in the so-called den. It was really more about an atrium. And she had Dad, for some reason, things move slow with my dad. He was like the turtle and she was the hare, just like Pat and I. He's the turtle, I'm the hare, but I'm trying to slow it down. And they would actually have the dishwasher, remember, in the kitchen. And I'm going, do you remember that? Dishwasher was in the kitchen, plugged in, you plug it in, you roll it out and plug it in. Do you not remember? I still remember.
I remember that. Yeah, then we had the kitchen remodeled.
Yes, it was up. They were remodeling. That's why they were doing that. It wasn't like they built it that way. You had a huge kitchen. Mom always had a very nice kitchen, and to her, the center of the family is the gathering together at dinner. That's why this house, we praise the Lord that we have a table near the TV, and we no longer watch dinner from the TV, Pat and I, which I did. Wasn't my dinner because my upbringing Italian was sitting around the table and talking during dinner. But we love the dinner table concept. Those of you who don't have dinner together as with your little children, Pat and I we hosted like 15 kids for dinner every night. And nowadays we kind of slow it down, just the two of us, and the Mom's here for this week and last week. So Mom, what were some other things you remember about your upbringing? And then we'll say some things more about you. But the decorating was good. Mom and Dad actually redid a house. Uncle Ray did the attic for Lynn and I. Remember the attic? You remember that?
Yeah.
The whole, so nice. It was like my own little private attic, but I was like Grandma, not scary. I had a lot of fear. So to be in that attic as a kid, woo, it was scary. But Lit loved it. It was like a haven. What did you just hired him to do it, Mom, or he did it out of the goodness of his Uncle Ray love?
Oh no, he just did it on his own. We didn't pay him or anything. He just did it, and it was very inconvenient. And we had a fire one time, and the man came over, and I had a stove between the refrigerator and the freezer, and in between was a stove. Okay. And the man that came over to give us an estimate on the kitchen said, where do you go when you have hot foods? And I just have to carry the hot foods from the stove all around the kitchen, the refrigerator, to put it on the counter. And so the guy gave us more money than we were expecting, because he said we needed a new kitchen. So he gave us enough money to build a new kitchen.
I didn't know that one.
It was just a small fire, not a lot of damage.
Okay, how did the fire happen? How'd you get a fire?
Probably, I don't know. I don't remember. But anyway,
was it me?
He gave us enough money to remodel the kitchen, and
nice, Mom.
And all we needed was the money to take care of the damage on the stove.
And then your dishwasher.
We were very lucky that way with people.
And then your dishwasher moved into the cabinets like you wanted it all along.
Yeah,
it was all redone. And we had, I think what Mom liked about that house too is that it was unusual. It was before its time. Like I said, it had the kitchen towards the back of the house, and off the kitchen, far away, was the den and the TV. So that if you were sleeping in one of the bedrooms, the TV would be right there. I thought that was a big old house. We used to walk to school from there in Spruce Street. And that was where Mom grew up in East Rochester. And then when she was older, she decided to go back. And I don't know what Dad did as a job. What did he do when he lived in East Rochester?
He was going to school to get his master's degree.
That late in life? Okay. That late. Okay. He's doing math.
Yeah. We had two children.
Well,
two children, and he went to school, and he was making like $50 a week. And our mortgage was $50 a month. And that last, when there were 5 weeks to a month, we'd have to go visit our parents to eat dinner, because we didn't have enough money to buy enough groceries for that 5th week.
Wow, that was his thing though. He did get his master's, and that was a long time ago. That had to be in the 50s, y'all, for him to have his master's in nuclear chemistry. Mom took care of the home and the family. And then when she got older, she went into catering, which was like kind of like she said, she liked cooking and she mind the cleanup. And she was very good at it. She's a legend in Aiken, South Carolina. And you all still remember, those of you who watch from Aiken, shout out to you. And this is Eleanor Manfredi. And we're talking about moms and how moms do things and how things have changed and how things are. You take some of the old and some of the new and you mix it together and make it our own. So am I talking too fast? Maybe. I don't know. Your internet connection is unstable. Okay. So there. And then so what do you think about what would you say that in your other things that you did that grandma did that you think what's some other things you could say that you did that grandma did or didn't do? What were some of your traditions? I know you did some traditions of your own with the family and some different ways of doing things than grandma did.
My mother used to spend a lot of time cooking, and I shortened a lot of the things she did, but I cooked the way she did because I liked her food.
Yes. I wish you could rip it.
But the reason I got into catering was that we lived in Louisville, Georgia. And being a Northerner, we went into business. We bought a motel and a restaurant came with it. And I didn't know anything about a restaurant. I'd never worked in a restaurant, didn't know anything about it. So we hired people that were professional and they just did whatever they wanted to serve, whatever they wanted to cook. But being in Louisville, I didn't know anybody. So when the restaurant got busy and we had a fair and the cooks were too busy to take care of the food, so I would take care of the food for these different groups that would meet there. We had some group that came every Tuesday, and we had a bridge club that came once a week. So we had a lot of groups that came. So I took over that because the restaurant was too busy. And so I enjoyed cooking for a group. And then we bought a house that was next door to our restaurant and motel. And the lady used to sell antiques. And we bought her house so that we could do all the catering for parties at that house. And so I took over the cooking for parties and really enjoyed it. And I could manage it. So that's how I got into catering.
And such a good thing. And again, she was a setter of way ahead of her time. It was when women didn't really take on a business of their own. Maybe some did. I mean, I'm just saying she was from a small town and God led her to use her gifts and then expand them each time. And then when she moved to Aiken, that's when she opened the catering business. And then that's when she really got to be known as, she was a newspaper. She did a lot with her life. Before she was a caterer, she did tons of other things with her life besides. She did, I always mention this because I think it's so inventive. It's kind of like my charity. She did a catering. You did seamstress. Did you do any other? I mean, you did a lot of baking for people. I mean, she did a lot of things. She's a go-getter, and she's slowed down a lot. I slowed down a lot too. She's a go-getter, and she survived cancer 3 times or 4, and she's had a shoulder on one side shattered and she had a broken arm in the other. Well, to be fair, she was climbing the stairs upstairs to get to bed, and it was in her high heels. So then she's fine now, except for she has all her parts don't work like they used to. But for 94, you didn't hear from me. She's doing great. So, Mom, if you were to say to a mom nowadays, because I ask questions, I just feel like that's my job. If you were to say to a mom nowadays, what was some mom advice, a little mom, like say Sean and Kendra have a child, you want to give some motherly advice, grandmotherly advice, or maybe to Charity, one of my children, or Johnny and Jenny, what would you say for some advice about being a wife and mother?
I would say that today's people, I'm judging it by my family.
Okay.
They don't have family dinners, and that's when you got together and talked to each other. And everybody kind of snacks and eats fast foods.
Okay.
And they don't really sit down and have dinner together like we all did, which brought the family close. Mm-hmm. Of course, Ellen's family is very close anyway. She has they have 4 girls, and girls make a family. If you had 4 boys and 2 girls, it would have been different.
It's always so, every family's different. But you know, I was saying, I want to get my hats off to my girls, because when we got to be a certain age and I had a certain amount of ways I could not be there, we were traveling the country and going different places for Pat to be a deacon. Then my girls took the baton, which I think is very healthy. And Charity or Carolyn or Caitlin or Amanda host. So that's one of it. We hold that in high esteem. Is we do something, Mom, called a family beach trip, which we like, and we do a lot of Sunday dinners. Usually they take turns. Sometimes it's at my house. That's only if it's adults or a small group. And we like Sunday dinner. We can't really eat together all the time nowadays. It's because all the kids are in so many sports is what happens. But I do agree with Mom. It's very important to get down to be empty nesters, and you kind of take the shortcut. My in-laws used to go out to eat all the time. That's the shortcut Pat and I took. And Mom used to cook for Dad and even herself, just when she was all alone, every night a full meal. She likes that kind of a mentality of eating that meal. And it's important if you're healthy. And so I think that's great. I think of what did your mom, like, what did you do as a mom in the day? You did a lot of decorating. Remember, you did a lot of decorating. And you have decorating trips, or no? Do you have any tips?
I used to love to decorate. And of course, my mother was busy cooking and she could care less about the decorating. It was clean. So I took over. And when I was 16, I decided to redo her living room. And I went and bought material at the 5 and 10 for 50 cents a yard. And I covered her entire sofa, her entire couch, and made drapes. And I had this little pedal sewing machine. Wow. And I made all these things. And like I said in the beginning, my father never wanted to buy a house. We rented. And the landlord came over and he was impressed with what I was doing. And the landlord owned about 20 houses or more. And he had a handyman that did all his paintings and everything. But he was so impressed with what I was doing that he brought his overhauls over and he painted the living room. And he asked me what color I wanted, because, you know, he owned all these houses. They were all the same color. So the landlord said to me, what color would you like me to paint? And he himself painted the living room.
Wow.
And I often wanted to write him a letter and thank him for how good he was to me. And then he died before I ever got his address.
What color did you paint it? We're so interested.
A turquoise.
See, now that's back in style now, is blue tones. It all goes in a cycle. It goes in a cycle. So Mom, were you big on recycling? Nowadays, people are organic recycling. I'm so none of those things. I'm like an old fashioned girl, but did you do recycling in those days? Or I don't know if you know what it is. It's like you take bottles, and you put in, I don't know, recycling and organic. It's like the kind of meat we had the other day.
I was very big on recycling.
Okay, good. Okay. What'd you do?
Like when we lived in Denver, and one of our wedding gifts was a mixed dishes, you know, different colors, 4 different colors, and we broke them. And as we broke them, we saved all the pieces. Okay. And then we had a bookshelf, and we put all the pieces on the bookshelf and displayed them like it was.
That's good. That's a different kind of recycling, but I do like that. And you did a lot with that, Mom, inventive things. They were my parents, well, most of their mom, she's very creative. She's a creative genius. So tell us some of the other things you did with recycling. I like the theme, recycling. Clothes, recycled clothes, you changed them a little bit.
Yeah, I would buy a blouse. I'd buy a nice blouse and then make a skirt to go with it.
Okay.
And I would buy scraps of material at the material places and pay very little for the material and make a skirt to go. There's a block on the TV, Ellen.
Okay.
On the computer.
No, it's only on yours. That's okay. So, and Mom's not modern like I'm not modern. We both don't do computers well or TV, or we don't turn it on. My husband we are in a land of modernization. We have a TV that sometimes we both can turn it off, something either one of us, and my husband is the one that, it's fine, Mom, it's fine. So anyway, so don't worry about it. I said, what I was going to say is that, look, she's a creative genius. She does catering. She designs clothes. She recycles, and she's worried about this thing right now. But we're going to go on, Mom. It'll be fine. You're still on mine. You're on fine. Okay, so I'm going to put her off for a minute there. Is you on? Okay, you're fine. So this is how it is when you're with different people of different generations. Like okay. Okay, hello, and this is Ellen Mongan from Wow Mom, and we're going to try to get her attention, or we're going to have to end the show. So, okay, so Mom, any more things you want to say about being a mother? Her favorite part about being the mother was the domestic part, which is great because my girls have that joke about some people like the domestic and some people like the nurturing part. I like the nurturing part of the children, but she liked the domestic part a lot. She didn't complain. There's many women out there that don't want to clean the toilet or do the cooking or do the cleaning. And Mom's not that category. That was where she shined and made everything sparkling clean. She's from the generation where you bring the plate of food to your husband. I still try to do that. My husband doesn't really want me to make his plate. She baked the plate of food to her husband. Okay, and so let me just say that this is Ellen Mongan from Wow Mom, and Mom's gonna exit for a minute, and I'm gonna just continue the show without her. She'll come back. So you're gonna go off, and we'll be right back. So see you in a minute, and then. So moms out there, what are you doing to make your mom feel special this Mother's Day? And what things did you take from your mom and do them? And what things did you not take that you said, this is not going to be me? I actually learned this from Bridget Dressler. I said, what do you do for motherhood and marriage? She said, well, we took some things from the Harsher family and some things from the Bridget, and I can't remember Bridget's name. Is it her? It's Bridget. Shout out to you. Bridget Vincent, and then we mixed it together and made it our family, the Dresser family. So we just thank the Lord that we're all so different and that we can all do it. There's many ways to skin a cat, unless you're Sean Mongan, who told me there's only one way, Mom. So when you're a mom, you spend a lot of time doing those things that are laying down your life for your family. And we think about it. Don't you think that's what Jesus did? Jesus laid down his life for all of us. It was a selfless job in that. Who is going to do it if he didn't? God the Father called him to lay down his life. It says, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that he who believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. This is the Easter season, time to rise up and to do what God's called you to do. So if you're a mom, it may seem mundane. Maybe no one thanks you for cleaning the toilets. Maybe no one thanks you for cooking the meal. They go, like the other day, my husband made organic meat. I go, baby, what is this? They were eating on a bun with like mayonnaise, mustard, lettuce, tomato, and I was just eating the hamburger plan going, okay, I'm still not an organic girl, but hey, you who are organic, go for it. Because different isn't always bad. Sometimes different is better. Just take some time today. Jot down a letter for your mom. Think of the things you liked about what she did in motherhood. Erase the rest. Maybe she wasn't the best cook, or maybe she didn't clean the house. Maybe she wasn't organized. Maybe she didn't play with the children. Or maybe she just didn't know how to be a mom herself. So this is a time to just erase those things that bothered you and throw them up to Jesus. Surrender them to him. And then those things you liked, jot a letter. She said she was writing a letter to a man that she wanted to thank who had painted her house, the landlord. But she waited too long and she didn't get the letter out. So today, don't wait. If you think of it, do it. Because Mother's Day is a time to just honor mothers, and I'm going to honor my mom now when she's gone, and thank the Lord for who she is. She's very skilled and she's very good at what she does, but no mom can do everything. I say, no one can do everything. Everyone can do something. So please be a good mom today. Know that you're raising the next generation and know that time is short. You never know when it's their last breath or yours. So do what you think of doing. And moms out there, shout out to you. Happy Mother's Day early. My mom's here. That's why we're doing this show early. And thank you for joining us. And we are glad you're here. This is Ellen Mongan from Wow Mom. Catch these videos on YouTube under Wow Mom Ellen Mongan. You can catch me at wowellen@yahoo.com. And you can catch me on my website, www.ellenmongan.com. Thank you for joining me. And that was a gift from my children, the website. So thank you again. And thanks. Good job, Mom. We enjoyed it.